The 2025 Brazilian Grand Prix just exposed Formula One's dirtiest secret: a 10-second penalty, a hidden mechanical failure, and a team engineer who couldn't keep quiet anymore. Oscar Piastri's Brazil nightmare wasn't driver error. It was a cover-up that's been brewing for 5 races straight. Lap 6, safety car restart, Interlagos turn 1. Piastri went for the gap on the inside of Antonelli's Mercedes while Leclerc attacked the outside. 3 cars, 1 corner, 0 room for error. Contact. Leclerc spins. Piastri gets slapped with a 10-second penalty applied immediately. No appeal, no questions asked. Case closed, right? Wrong. Days later, Tom Stallard, Piastri's race engineer, dropped a bombshell that shook McLaren to its core. The MCL-39's front suspension hydraulics had been malfunctioning for 5 consecutive Grand Prix weekends. Not speculation. Documented internal failures that McLaren's technical department knew about but failed to fix. Let that sink in. Piastri raced with a compromised car through Mexico, Brazil, and 3 other circuits. The team knew. They did nothing. And when the inevitable happened, he took the blame. The data doesn't lie. During that fateful braking zone at turn 1, Piastri's left front wheel locked asymmetrically for milliseconds. That's the hydraulic system failing in real time. The car didn't respond as intended. The trajectory shifted mid-corner. Piastri had to correct while travelling at 250 km per hour. This wasn't a reckless dive bomb. This was a driver fighting a defective machine while the stewards judged him as if everything was perfect. According to FIA regulations, the attacking driver must have their front axle level with the defender's mirror before the apex. The stewards claimed Piastri didn't meet this threshold, but internal telemetry showed he had partial overlap at the braking point, and by contact, his front axle was nearly aligned with Antonelli's side pod. Even Leclerc called it out post-race. It was 50-50. Oscar was optimistic, but Kimi closed like Oscar didn't exist. When the guy who got spun out says it's a racing incident, something's seriously wrong with the penalty decision. Here's where it gets uglier. While Lando Norris crushed qualifying sessions and delivered consistent race pace, Piastri suffered random understeer, traction loss under heavy braking, and unexplained performance drops. 2 drivers, same team, drastically different experiences. Was there intentional favouritism? No concrete evidence. But when one car gets fixed and the other doesn't, when one driver dominates while the other fights gremlins in the hydraulics, the optics are catastrophic. Before Brazil, Piastri and Norris were neck and neck in the standings. That 10-second penalty created a 24-point gap. In a season this tight, that's not just a setback. It's a death sentence for the drivers' championship hopes. Piastri went from title contender to damage control in one penalty decision based on incomplete information. McLaren let it happen. The FIA rubber-stamped it, and now the Australian is paying for failures that weren't his fault. Andrea Stella and McLaren's technical directors offered no public explanation. No acknowledgement of the hydraulic issues. No defence of their driver, just diplomatic silence that screams damage control. When your own race engineer leaks that you've been racing with broken equipment for 5 weekends and management says nothing, that's not protecting the team. That's protecting themselves. This incident exposes Formula One's fundamental flaw. Stewards judge manoeuvres in a vacuum. They don't factor in mechanical failures. They don't consider telemetry anomalies. And they certainly don't investigate whether a team put their driver in an impossible situation. Piastri was penalised for a move that was aggressive but within racing limits, executed with a car that McLaren knew was compromised. That's not sporting justice. That's technical negligence dressed up as driver error. McLaren's internal culture is now under a microscope. When you're fighting Red Bull and Ferrari for constructors' glory, you can't afford mechanical failures that linger for 5 races. You can't afford engineer leaks that expose your operational failures. And you absolutely cannot afford to sacrifice one driver's championship because fixing his car wasn't a priority. The psychological damage is already done. Piastri's confidence takes a hit every time he breaks into a corner, wondering if the hydraulics will hold. His relationship with the team becomes strained when he knows they raced him with faulty equipment. And his championship aspirations crumble under the weight of penalties for incidents caused by their negligence. Was Oscar Piastri's penalty in Brazil justified? Or did the FIA penalise a driver for a team's failure to maintain their equipment? When you're racing at 300 km per hour with hydraulics that fail at the worst possible moment, is it really your fault when things go wrong? Formula One prides itself on being the pinnacle of motorsport. But when technical failures get ignored, when teams prioritise one driver over another, and when stewards apply penalties without understanding the full context, the sport loses credibility. 24 points, 5 races of hidden failures, 1 engineer who finally spoke up, and a driver who deserved better from the team that's supposed to have his back. That's the real story of Brazil 2025. Not a racing incident, not a driver mistake, but a systemic failure that Formula One refuses to acknowledge.